Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So thank you for inviting us. We're really interested and we're really happy to be here to talk about an interesting subject that we absolutely love. And the reason for us being both here is because we think it's totally critical to have both marketing or brand and HR together when you're starting to think about culture. And I think we have quite a privileged situation, having worked for a big company and a big brand, trying to do what's called culture, but also now working with lots of different companies to just have a little look into what other people do. So hopefully we can share some of that insight with you today. So I'm going to find my slides. Here we go. So first of all, quite a few people often say to us, what is culture? And we've had this really recently. So I just started to think a little bit about what culture is even. And so I don't know if anyone's ever, this is my sad sort of personal life. I'm going to put culture into Google and see what happens. Okay, so this is the result of what you get when you put in culture in Google. Firstly, you get, is it 1.4 billion results? So I think no one knows how to define what culture means. Secondly, what I noticed about this is that there isn't a sort of formulaic rule book about how you build a culture. And actually what's really interesting about it is, yes, there's things like manners and habits and having a common language and, you know, religions and beliefs and all those things that you think are really important and often I think are associated with bad things happening because they're very strict about certain things. But also there's a whole level of energy and happiness around it. So yes, there's things like music and celebrations and arts and jokes. You know, you think about how sometimes jokes just don't translate to other cultures, and I think that's really important to have that level of understanding that a culture is sort of dynamic, it's alive. So things that I noticed about this was that they're very unique, of course, that set of people, but they're really colourful. They're about unity and being together, but they're dynamic and they're about joy and fun. And I think within business, joy and fun can be quite a difficult thing to talk about. We don't like talking about happiness. It's not serious. It's not serious enough. So then when you look at what work is, and again, I put in work into Google, and the first image that popped up was this. Oh my God. I started boring myself when I was looking at it. I was like, this is so depressing. I mean, look at these guys. They're just, you know, I think some of the words that came up, I actually couldn't find a proper definition of work that wasn't something like sort of turmoil and toil and pressure and force. I thought, no wonder there's a difficulty in getting organisations to think about what culture they want to create, because we're so inherently told what work is and it should look like this. And I love this image because I imagine the conversation that I had with the design agency, which was, we need to get some cogs in there. Let's get some cogs in there because that represents the people. So I think it's really interesting that no wonder people find culture a difficult conversation to have, particularly when you compare what culture means generally into what a working life is. And who recognises this? I mean, I made this chart just to because I thought it looked pretty. Trying to like jazz up what work stood for, but you know, it's all serious, isn't it? And profit, of course, is so important, and that's what we're here for. We need to be serious, and we need to talk seriously. And how many times, and even at Red Bull, we were guilty of this, of saying we're just not creative. That's for creative types, and even in marketing when I worked, it was like, we're not very good at numbers, we're creative. And any of you have done colours and insights where you're red or yellow, you feel very happy being in those little boxes and you don't want to mix over. So I think that, you know, that relationship is obviously then very hard when you're then trying to have a vibrant, dynamic culture. So I put this back, I thought, join them together. Do these people look like they have energy, that they're alive and they're making really dynamic decisions about their business? Yet so many conversations in business happen like this. So we thought we would share with you some urban myths and a few little sequences of success from our perspective.
Okay, so first of all, we want to get you to have a little think. So just spend a couple of minutes looking at the things that we put up there. These are things that we hear all the time. So what are the top 5 things that you think would have the biggest impact on your company culture?
Leadership visits.
Leadership visits, okay. Anything else? Anyone else?
Part-time and flexi-time, I think.
Yeah. Part-time and flexi-time, yeah. Why is that?
I just think there's a myth that you have a work life and a home life, and that myth needs to just be blown apart. We just have to have a life.
Yeah. Any others?
I'd go for strong moral and business values.
Moral and business values.
Okay. Our answer is actually none of them. Sorry to disappoint, but it's the essence behind these things that are important to creating a culture. So we quite often go into businesses and we'll talk to them about they want to have enhance their culture, and they say, well, we'll pop in a ping pong table because everyone then can have fun and they can play together. And that's great. You know, a ping pong table is one of the things that you could do. But what you need to think about is, why are you trying to create that culture? What type of culture are you trying to create? And if it is about having a relaxed environment where people are able to take time out and think and be a bit creative, then a ping pong table might be one of the things that you want to do to enhance that culture. But actually, fundamentally, what you're doing is trying to think about what kind of office environment do you want to have that can support that creative culture. So you're probably best investing in spaces where people can co-create. You know, you can have banish the boardroom with the big table where everyone sits and thinks seriously around there. You know, actually having space where people can come up with great ideas and be inspired to come up with those ideas. Another one which I really like is the back to the floor leadership visits that you mentioned, Sarah. So yeah, that's a great thing, but it's the output of it. So actually what you're trying to do is to break down the barriers around a hierarchical culture and get people to understand what your frontline people are experiencing, what your customers are experiencing. So that's the kind of the cultural DNA that you're trying to get out of that. So before you go and try and implement any of these things, actually the thing that you need to do first is to understand what kind of culture do you want to create, and what are the types of things that can enhance that. And the really important thing about culture is being authentic to you. Don't do the ping pong table if you're not a ping pong table type organisation. We went to see Richard Branson speak last week, and everything that he talks about is authenticity. It's all about understanding who you are first, and then making sure that that infiltrates your culture. Don't try and be someone else. You'll get found out. So, a few tips on where to get started.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's heard of David Hyatt. He's definitely worth looking up. He is from Cardigan Bay in Wales, and he has just started making jeans again. And I think that he is a fascinating guy. He also runs something called the Do Lectures. And he says some very simple, common sense things. And one of the things that he often says is brands and purpose mean more and do better. And I think that's really interesting. I don't think that's ever been anything that has changed, but it's starting to become ever more prominent. And we would say that companies that use their brand and their people to build their cultures mean more and do better. And I think that's really important, because people no longer want to come to work just to do a job and go home. They want to feel like they have a purpose. And I think whatever culture you start to build needs to support that idea and come from who you are and your people. So the first piece of advice that we would give is to work out who you are. And so brand, often we go into companies and tell us to take brand out. They don't want to say that word because it's a scary word. It feels like something that only marketing people do. It's not real. And actually, your brand simply is just who you are. It's what attitude you have. Yes, you may have nice shiny logos and a nice identity, but that is so much more. In the same way as how you dress and how you represent yourself is so much, there's so much more to you underneath. So finding out who you are and what you stand for is really important. And so many people often start with one end of the scale or the other. So they may start with how they tell people externally what they're about. And so then that's your employer brand. But actually, if you haven't really worked out what your purpose is, what your story is and your narrative and how you're going to tell people, then how are you ever going to make that a real thing? And likewise, you shouldn't just start with your culture and who you are internally. It should be everything that comes from who you are, so that you're not creating values, for example, that actually don't fit with anything that you're about. So it's really important to start in that heart, and we always say make best friends with your marketing team, and that's so true, because your marketing team probably know more about what your brand is and what your company is than anybody else, and it shouldn't just sit with the marketing team. They're not crazy creative types. Marketing is a pretty straightforward principle. So make friends with those guys, and we used to suffer from that a little bit. We used to point across the room like, that's that weird angel of death sitting in HR, but actually you can join
and the brand witch sitting in brand.
But actually, when we started working together, we realised we were pretty much doing the same thing, but from different ends of the scale. And it's all about how to get the best out of the people. The second is values that create energy. Now, I promise I'm not going to try and get all hippy-dippy and start talking about energy and spirituality with you. But to demonstrate this point, I just want you to, on your own, just think about a time when you were at your best. It can be anything, it can be work or in your home life. For me, it's when I sit on the train and I come up with some of my best ideas because I'm not sitting in an office. Carla, because she's a bit of a swot, ran the marathon, so she always talks about the marathon, what an amazing thing that is to do. So just think about, for a couple of minutes, a time when you were at your best. And then I also want you to think about what were the things that helped make that happen. So what was the environment, what sort of things, what were your values that drove you, what were all the things that helped you feel like, yeah, I was at my best, or I was on form on that day. And hopefully you may be thinking of some of these sort of things. So, so having passion for something you love, doing a challenge always comes up, and whenever we run this exercise quite a lot with teams. So, you know, doing something you thought you'd never be able to do, and that you achieved something, but you had a lot of support. You were working together. You were striving for that next thing. You know, it's not a sort of average feeling. It's like, yeah, there were some things here that really drove me when I was thinking about what is important and how I could get back into that state. So why do we then have business values that are actually the opposite of that? Because they have no energy at all. And I think, you know, their intent is fine. I can totally see why you might want to have innovation as one of your values, but it's just not dynamic enough. So, so one of the big things once you've worked out who you are and what you stand for as a brand is to think really carefully about how are you going to get all of the people to really believe that they can deliver some of the things that you can do, because you've got really high expectations. And interestingly, if you look up the definition of energy, it's all about propulsion and flow and direction. Like that is, if you have a culture and a business that supports that type of energy, then you have business energy, and that then helps produce performance. And so values are one of the key things to get right, and not just put them on your wall, but actually live and breathe them, so that it feels like this is a company that's going to make things happen.
And then this might feel a bit scary, actually. So let your people build and own it. And it's not just your future talent. There's a lot of chat about future talent want to be involved in the way that the business is run, and they want to come up with ideas. As human beings, we all want to be involved. If you think about, you know, how do you get people to actually do something that you want them to do? If you tell them how to do it, they'll just see it, and they might follow you, but they might not. If you show them how to do it, an example by leadership, by your HR team, they're probably going to start to feel it because they'll be a bit more involved. But actually, the scary thing is, if you invite them and kind of take a big leap of faith, invite them to be involved, they'll engage in it, they'll share it, and they will ultimately grow it, because you are not the culture, they are the culture. And the thing is, you have to let that evolve, and they're the people who will continue that kind of through the generations, and evolve your company culture to what it needs to be. And if it feels scary, which it will at times, then it's probably a good thing. So invite your people to think about how should they celebrate success. Ask them to think about, well, how should the environment be bringing our values and our culture to life? What things do we need to do to enable you to be brilliant at work? So is it we need creative spaces so we can talk? Is it that we need to have spaces where we can concentrate and do the thinky stuff? Because that's really important too. So making sure that you just don't have a generic kind of office. Making sure that when you are launching your values as well, that it's something you involve them in. So don't sit in a room as a leadership team and come up with your values and tell people them. Ask them what they are. They are the people that create your culture. And then allow them to challenge people and to when those values aren't being upheld. So it is quite scary, because if you're putting yourselves out there, you've got to expect the challenge as well. But that's when it gets really, you know, your culture really evolves and gets much stronger. And also involve them on how to tell your story. So, and when we were at Red Bull, we did a lot of storytelling. Everything that we had from our brand was all about great stories and creating word-of-mouth marketing. And every single person in that business was able to tell that story. And if you've got a business that you want to attract new talent to, your team are the best ambassadors that you can have to tell that story. So make sure they're really clear on what it is and that they can tell it in their own voice. It's not sending out an email, this is what you need to do. It's them telling it in their own way. It's then authentic. And then also thinking about how do you, if you've got these great values that Imogen said, you know, often they'll end up just being painted on a wall. We love walking into an organisation and it's like, oh, here are the values. Oh yeah, but we don't use those, so we want to rework them. Okay, great. Well, actually, the really important thing is once you've got those values, you don't have to bother painting them on the wall. It's about people living and breathing those day to day. So really coming up with creative ideas and involving people in bringing them to life. You know, actually asking them to, if innovation is something that is part of one of your values, not the word itself, but you know, coming up with great ideas is a value. Then actually, how do you do that? What things do we need to do in our business and stop doing and start doing to make that a reality? So, final point is about creating a movement. So too often there's some really great work that happens around what your values are and how you're going to embed that. And then it just doesn't feel like it happens quick enough. So suddenly we change it all. And actually, you just need one follower to take hold and things will start to change. And as with any movement, it can take a little while. So forgive me if you have seen this video, but I love this video. So I just thought I would share this with you. It's had a little bit of a talk over from a leadership perspective, but the principles are still the same.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is overglorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
Where are the drugs?
So, be brave, because we talked about bravery, and we talk about bravery an awful lot. And if you are coming up with some things that are particularly values that are quite different to how you've done things in the past, stick with it, because it can be quite a lonely place. You can see, I love that, as soon as everyone starts crazily getting in, and all the people sitting on the ground were suddenly like, oh God, we actually feel quite weird now, we need to go and join in, and that's exactly how you want it to be. So, quick recap, work out who you are, have values that create energy, make sure that it's your people that own and build it, because that's so important for it to also evolve. Be bold and brave. We promise it will make a difference and create a movement. So we thought we would leave you with Jerry Springer-esque final thought. I was Googling Jerry Springer last night, I haven't done that for ages. Because I really struggled with finding a good definition of what organisational culture was. So we thought we'd just give you a kick-ass quote instead as our final summary. This is from some of our favourite people, we talk about Branson a lot. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So no matter how visionary, brilliant and far-reaching a leader's strategy might be, it can all come undone if it's not fully supported by a strong and spirited corporate culture. It's one of the most unappreciated essentials in business. And if we could tell everybody in business that and they believed it, then I think the world would be quite a different place. Thank you very much.